Welcome to the Leading at the Next Level podcast with Dove Development Consulting, the show built to provide ongoing support for your leadership journey. I'm Wes, and I've got the distinct honor and privilege today to host a very, very dear friend, the amazing Lane Jones. Lane is the founder, CEO, boss, anything you want to say for Jones Lane Agency, and she'll tell you a little bit about that shortly. The way Cindy and I got to know her about 10 years ago now is through the Maxwell Leadership organization, and Lane has done some absolutely amazing work with that. Now, here's how cool Lane is. Okay, so she and I went through the initial certification in August 2015 together, but Lane was like, yeah, I'm going to run the world. And she did for Maxwell Leadership and their branding. She's been their global head of marketing, chief marketing officer, whatever those things are called, and just made some tremendous impact on the way that brand has been viewed around the world, especially when they went from all the separate entities to one entity. She might talk about that as we move forward. But Lane, thanks for being with us today. There's some cool stuff we're going to talk about here. I struggle keeping secrets, but I've done it with one for a little bit. Before we dig into some of those, how about sharing your background and a little bit of your experience in the industry, please?
Well, thanks, Wes. I really appreciate being here, and welcome to everyone who's watching. I think we're going to have a great conversation today as we jump in. But as Wes mentioned, we both met through our good friend, John Maxwell. We both got certified by John Maxwell in 2015. So over a decade now ago, since we've actually known each other. And then I had the privilege, and also I would even say the gall, if you will, to raise my hand to help the Maxwell Leadership Organization a different way. In fact, at the time that Wes and I came into the organization, it was called John Maxwell Team. And at that time, we were under one organization, one umbrella, and the Maxwell Company actually owned 4 different entities. And so fast forward to 2022, the company rebranded and became one organization under what we now know as Maxwell Leadership. And getting them there, I was actually able to be a part of that process, from joining as a team member to eventually leading up all of the branding and marketing of the internal communication to the certified team members, and then being asked to go to the leadership team in the corporate office, the headquarters office, and lead up the branding initiatives there. And so even since then, I've led up global marketing to expand into other countries. And so it's been a real honor, but also a growth opportunity for me, a growth journey for me. And that's just one of the things that I get to do. As Wes mentioned, I own my own branding and marketing firm. And through that organization called Jones Lane, I get to help entrepreneurs, small business owners, and even executives develop a brand for themselves and their businesses. And in that process, I have been working with Wes to help him brand up, if you will, for Dove Development and Consulting. So from his events that he's now been leading for over a decade, and even some projects that we're working on that, like he said, he doesn't want to spill the beans on. So I think one of the things that I've learned over the years, Wes, is that in my experience learning about branding, learning about marketing, no 2 clients are the same. But what has been the same are the principles to branding. And so I'm now working with a ghostwriter to develop that framework. I have a framework developed that I've learned over the years that I've implemented. And now that I've tested and proven that framework, we're going to put it in a book. And one of those things that I've learned is what we're going to be talking about today. And that is values. Values are the heartbeat of every organization. So you as a leader have to determine, is your values leading your organization to a way where you have a healthy heartbeat, or are your values causing your company to have some heart failure? And there needs to be some resuscitation or some rehabilitation. And so I'm in my branding framework, the very first V, 6 V's. The very first V is values. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And so I say all of that to say, Wes, it's a great opportunity to be here with you and talk to the development community and leading at the next level community, because I think that what you're talking about now, values, and your forthcoming book, The Values Advantage, is key, especially now.
Yeah, Lane, you've been so influential with the work that Cindy and I have done. We've done pretty much everything ourselves since we started our business in 2015, moved full time into it in 2020 for both of us. Cindy's been involved full time since 2016, but you were the first person to do a landing page on our website, not named Wes, in the whole time. And we had about 1,000 pages and we were getting massive traffic, and it changed so much for us. I learned so much through that process with you. It's been such a cool interaction. Gosh, on the heels of doing that initial landing page for our 2025 Leadership Legacy Experience, we said, gosh, do you want to come? If you want to be part of the event, you're welcome to join us. And you did. And you were willing to be part of one of our executive panels. And it was so cool to have you there with us. You served us in ways that we never would have even asked for. It was just outstanding. Before we get into values, talk about what that driving force, that purpose has been for you to really do all the things you do. You were already successful before you joined the Maxwell community. You've already served people at a high level before you were willing to talk with some hillbilly like Wes. Talk about that purpose that drives you.
Absolutely. So one of the things I know is that I I tell people I couldn't help but be an entrepreneur. If there's anything that leads me or inspires me or pushes me, it is that deep down I couldn't help but be an entrepreneurness in me. And I say that because I'm a fourth generation entrepreneur. So as far as back as I can remember, the women in my family actually have owned their own businesses or had some opportunity to steward entrepreneurship through our family. And so my great great grandmother was an entrepreneur. My grandmother was an entrepreneur. She was a seamstress. My mom owned dry cleaners, but before she did that, she had a candy store called Chat's Corner in our neighborhood community where she sold penny candy and those little cookies that you could put in a paper sack bag. I remember growing up watching her run that store. And so when she later in life decided to have her open up a dry cleaners, that was one of my first real jobs, was working for my parents and watching people in my family become entrepreneurs, seeing all the hard work that it takes to run your own business and to do your own thing. That I think is what motivates me the most is being born into that, but then also seeing the outcome of that and being a product of that. That's what I think moves me to help other people. I want to help other people's businesses succeed. And one of the things that has become a strong point for me, if you will, is helping them with understand their branding and their marketing. And bonus for me if I can catch a company before they even actually incorporate or before they're starting, because to me the branding work actually needs to happen on the front end, whereas most people don't even think about it until they've already started their business. And it's not that you can't do it later on, but it does help if you can do it in the beginning, because all the things that we talked through, especially with this framework that I've now been incorporating with all of my clients, is you have to have all these things in place before you can even run a good business. And so that's what motivates me the most, is helping entrepreneurs succeed and then doing that through branding and helping them with their branding and their marketing so that they can position themselves well to have a successful business.
Yeah. And we didn't have all of that in place. We did whatever we knew how to do. We just started throwing money up against the wall. We had some good mentors and we had some people to
Yeah.
learn from, but they weren't you. And you've up leveled that by far. But I mean, I'm all the way fanatical. I don't leave the house unless I've got something with our logo on. I sat here
Yeah.
with one of our groups and I'm not saying it's all good, but by golly, it's consistent. I'm not good at many things, Lane, but I can work hard and I can be consistent. And
Yes.
you've helped us tremendously take that consistency and that work ethic and just tweak it to make sure it captures the right attention. And that's the piece that even for us, even though it wasn't from the beginning, and I can only imagine how much more effective it would have been if it were from the beginning. Now, in your case, you've got a special role here. I mentioned that you were with us for the 2025 Leadership Legacy Experience around the idea of leading with clear purpose. You talked about your purpose. As we've worked together and we've developed the friendship, moving into more of a formal partnership on a couple pieces that we may touch on, I said, Lane, would you be willing to help us with this book and come back again next year? We'll talk about the book first. You wrote the prologue for The Values Advantage. It's on pre-order as we share this right now.
Mhm.
And within the last 72 hours, it's been consistently a number one seller on Amazon. So proud of that. We're excited about that and thankful for the people around us in our community that's helped with that. Talk to me about why you were willing to be part of that. You mentioned how values tie in, but for this is somebody else. It's not you. Why did you say yes?
Well, the first reason I said yes is because you asked me. And I say that because the values advantage isn't something that you just decided would make a good book. It's something that I've seen you and Cindy live. And so for you to ask me to write a prologue about a book about values wasn't a it was an easy yes. It would have been hard for me to say no to that because I've watched you live great values and I've watched you work with your clients and I've heard the stories of the work that you've helped them do as you were talking to them about their values. And when we first started working with you from that last year's event, like you mentioned, it was about purpose. And that definitely is something that is very attractive and also something that is something I believe in. I do believe that your purpose and your values go together. And so I was all in when we talked about purpose last year. And then when this book came about, you talked about values, I was definitely going to say yes to this because I've seen you live your values. It's not something that you just talk about, it's something that you live. And then it's something that you can, with integrity, help lead others through. So that was why I said yes.
Well, that was humbling. That wasn't the response I was expecting, but thank you. So I'll say with that, wow. We've talked about where you came from, the entrepreneurness that you mentioned that was just woven in through generations and so on. Talk a little bit about your background, who you serve today specifically. You've alluded to it. Go a little bit deeper, but in this
Yeah.
case, talk about how you make sure one of your core values is something they experience every single day. And then after that, I don't think I can contain myself anymore. I want to go back and make sure we make that announcement.
Okay, no problem. I think part of the thing when you say talk about my background, I know with me, I know what it's like to do more with less, right? And so one of my core values is resourcefulness. It's always been something that has been my, if you will, claim to fame. I've never, and I'll give an example of how this is lived out in my life, but also my work experience. I've never been the type of person who only did what was on my job description. There was a time before I started my own business that I worked in corporate America. And I've had to have different jobs and different responsibilities, but there's never a time where I've worked for someone else where I just wore that one hat and that's all I ever did. And so if I needed an answer, I wasn't going to wait for my boss or supervisor or my peer to get back to me when I could just go find out myself. And so it's through that resourcefulness that I became a self-taught graphic designer. And by the time I met John Maxwell's company and John Maxwell's team's president at that time, I was already designing graphics for 6+ years. So when they asked me to do the rebrand, I could do it because I was prepared to do it. He didn't even know I was a self-taught designer and hadn't gone to school for it. And then I took over the rebrand project for Maxwell Leadership. Why? Because I decided to teach myself graphic design skills back in 2006 because we didn't have a graphic designer in the company where I was working. So that resourcefulness is something that has stuck with me. And it is definitely something that as I'm working with clients, I look for that in their teams. Because when I'm working with clients, I'm not there to stay. I'm there to help them implement something, and then I'm hoping that their team can take it and run with it and not mess it up, right? And so I'm looking for resourcefulness in their teams. I'm showing them how to even staff for resourcefulness and how to look for those character traits within their team members and even among themselves. I typically attract the type of client who understands this. They may not name it resourcefulness, but it's definitely something that I notice it when I'm working with my own clients. And so I think that's one of my core values. And then a secondary value to that is performance or production. I'm very much about results. I don't like to talk about a whole lot, but I like to get a lot done. And I like for my clients to achieve results. So one of the things that I've learned to do when I'm proposing a branding or a marketing proposal or a project is I show them how to make their money back. because I believe that your branding should do your marketing for you, and that should be able to get you new clients. And if I can prove to you that the work that we do together is going to help you make more money, then I have now produced in a way that has added value to you. And so those, I think, are two of my core values. And then it's also what I use to guide how I work with clients.
That is fantastic. And it answers, we come at it from a different perspective, but we take the same approach. Lane, I
Yes.
can't tell you I've ever had a job. I remember in 2012, I had a new supervisor. So I guess it was 2013 where I had the review, and the
Mhm.
guy's telling me, here's all the great things that you're doing, but we can only give you this much raise. And you're taking on this and you're taking on this. And I said, that's okay. There's a book that I read that says, as you sow, so shall you reap.
That's
And
right.
your name's not in it.
That's right.
And he didn't think it was one bit funny. You're laughing. He didn't. And I didn't care
Yeah,
because it didn't change the fact that that's what the book said, right?
that's right.
And
That's right.
hey, we'll do well, and it's going to come from somewhere. And
Mhm.
yeah, and so the resourcefulness, hey, as an HR person, as someone, when I was doing consulting in an HR world for folks, and they would have an employee say, that's not in my job description. Well, there's this line that says, and other duties designated by your supervisor. I
Exactly.
promise you that line's in there.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. And hey, why fight it? Just own it. So that was fantastic. Okay, I can't take the pressure. One of the things that we ask you if you'd be willing to do, because your message ties in so well and is going to be so impactful in a way to do exactly what you just said, show tangible return on investment
Yes.
for those clients, was to join us in a very special way at the 2026 Leadership Legacy Experience. Will
Yes.
you talk about what that very special way is?
Absolutely. So last year at Leadership Legacy, like as I mentioned, we talked about purpose, and I was on one of your executive panels, and it was a great time. I shared that panel with 4 other leaders, and we talked about how the purpose makes a difference and how do you align purpose within a company this year. And I'm very grateful to you and Cindy for even giving me this opportunity. I will be a keynote speaker. And so I'm looking forward to that, because when you talk about values, and I alluded to this earlier too, one of the most important things when it comes to branding is you have to have your values determined, and we have to figure out how you're going to align your values, and then your team is going to align with your values. I call it the brand dash values alignment. So that's going to be the subject of what we talk about in that keynote. But I'm excited, Wes, about this year's event, even more than I was last year, obviously. But I'm a little bit more biased now because I'll be taking on that keynote speaker role. And so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, we're thrilled. Couldn't be happier that you were willing to say yes. I don't know that you've told us no to anything, and we'll just keep asking, because that's what we do. Ask Mark and Kimberly next time. And that's where it's at. But the reality is, if you ask not, you have not.
That's right.
One of the other things that we ask you to do, and you said, well, I can't do this, but here's what I can do, is, hey, we would love to present everybody that's part of the Leadership Legacy event with a copy of your book.
Yes.
And the reality is, it's not going to be ready, but talk about what you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Wes and I have been working together on this event and a couple of other projects, Wes has totally impressed me with how many books he's been cranking out so quickly. I'm still working on mine. And so I started working on my book kind of like the middle of last year. And I've got it all fleshed out to now we're actually full into writing chapters. I think we're up to chapter 6 now, but it still won't be ready before the event. So what we're going to do is, my framework is around 6 V's of branding. And I believe we're going to call it the brand evolution. And it's just going to be the 6 human elements of developing a winning brand. We won't have the full book ready, but we will have the chapters on values ready. So what we're going to do is we're going to create like a miniature version of the book, and it will be about the brand values alignment. So it will be totally in alignment with the event content, the keynote that I'm going to be giving, and then also you'll be able to take that book, even though it's not the complete all 6 of the V's, it'll be the first most important V, and it will actually take you through an exercise on how to make sure your values are aligned with your brand. It's also going to show you how And we talked about this a little bit yesterday, Wes, how your values as a leader is just as much about organizational development as it is about your self leadership. So it's not just about your organization's leadership when it comes to values, it's also about your self leadership. And the questions you need to be asking yourself are my values aligned with my company's values? And then even as you're staffing your teams or you're adding new people onto your team, are their values in the interviewing process? Are there, can you ask them what their values are? I think one of the gentlemen last night shared that he didn't think about how to ask a person that he was interviewing what their values were until someone walked in and they were going through an interview process. He said he narrowed it down from about 20 something people, or maybe even 30 something people, to 7 people. And only one of those people said to him, well, here's my values. And one of the reasons I want this role is because my values actually align with your company's values. He said until that moment, he didn't even think about asking any of the other candidates what their values were. And that made it such a difference in his life that he's now asking that all the time, but he's also now making sure that his values align with the company's values whenever he's working with an organization. So that's how important values are. And if we talk about a brand, oh my goodness, your brand actually could become your values. We know what kind of brand you have when you're in hot water. My mom used to say that about tea. I know what kind of tea you have when I put you in hot water. We know what kind of company you are when rubber meets the road. Are you willing to still live out those values 10 years later, 5 years later, or when you have some sort of crisis management situation? So that's how important your values are. And I think that's what I'm excited about too, about sharing at the event, but also the several chapters. But it'll be a nice, juicy book on just that, the brand values alignment.
So I'm thrilled about it. There's a couple things that I'll piece in just in the last couple of weeks. So Cindy and I shared with a group of about 30 executives, business owners from different organizations last Friday that, hey, we always have had these core things that mattered to us. There's non-negotiables in our life and our marriage. Now, close to 30 years we've been together, but we didn't have them written down. There were things that if you question, put either of us in the corner, we're going to come out fighting on these things. But over the last several years, we've realized we were the cobblers without shoes. We were your mom's candy store without candy. And we had to put them in writing, and we were able to do it in the theme of impact because that's one of our programs that we've developed over the years and so on. But the words don't matter. It's the meaning and what backs it. Just over the last I guess last year at the Leadership Legacy event, you were on the same panel with a guy named Alex, who is responsible for the Jobs for Veterans State Grant team here in Virginia. He's amazing. And he and I've got a great relationship. We were talking the other day about how they've incorporated those values into their interview process, not to circumvent any of the HR stuff, but to just make sure the people fit, because the reality is it's a state wage. It's not most of the folks coming into their program lane could make their almost all retired military, but it's a requirement to be military because that's who they serve. But they could make sometimes double, triple, quadruple in private sector what they're doing there. And it's a heavy, heavy thing because they're serving veterans with barriers to employment. In many cases, those are some pretty heavy barriers. So it's very emotionally taxing. And I've challenged them. How can you make sure the hard part's out in front, but you base it on those values so you get the right people? Now, here's why I'm telling you all this. Alex has done that. He shared a story just like Josh did. It was almost like deja vu because I just had the conversation with Alex days before as Josh shared it. But Alex's predecessor in that role, the guy that created the values with his leadership team, even before Alex was a part of it, he opens the real world examples chapter of the book. And he's going to be on the very first panel of the day saying, here's how we nailed those values down that Alex is working for. So kind of cool.
Now, yeah, that's awesome. It's all lining right on up.
Yeah, it gives me chills to see it happen in organizations like that. Now, with the chapters that you've alluded to, there's something else that you've kind of touched on a little bit, some different things we're working on. I'm going to throw big picture, and you hopefully will be able to tie it together and make some sense of it. One of the things that me and you and Cindy have been working pretty closely on together is an idea for how we help organizations build their values in, not words on the wall, not words in the
Yep.
handbook, not just definitions that go along with those words, but how we help those organizations absolutely embody their values at every level, from the janitor and the ditch digger, the West, the guy
Yes.
that was holding the dumb end of the tape measure, right? All the way up through the president, CEO, chairman of the board, so they know exactly what those values look like in practice. Talk about how we're going to be able to put the brand evolution idea of values
Yep.
into that framework that helps those organizations do that.
Yes. That's definitely something that you, Cindy, and I are working through, and we're really wanting this to launch at that Leadership Legacy event this year, which will be happening in June 12th. So I'm putting that shameless plug out there for us both. But one of the things that when we're working through this with organizations, we want people to know is that values only matter when when you can use them to guide decisions and actions. To Wes's point, it's not just something you stick on a wall and say we have values. It's not even something that you want to get people to repeat over and over again without it having any meaning. Because if it's not guiding decisions or behavior or changing behavior or aligning behavior, then you might as well not have them. And so your values shape your behavior, and then your behavior is what really builds up that brand reputation. And so as we're working through this framework, I think that's one of the things that we are going to be doing together, Wes, Cindy, and I, when we're helping you as an organization, make sure there is alignment with your values, with your brand, but also what you want to be known for and how your team, your leaders, your managers, your employees, your staff, everybody on your team needs to be showing those values lived out and not just discussed or talked about.
Yeah, Lane, you've alluded to, we've talked a lot about the leadership legacy experience. Wherever you're accessing this, if you're watching the video, the only place this video is available at this point is in our new community. And I think this is actually broadcast to the leadership legacy channel within that community, which is no cost. And the audio version will be out on our podcast and all the different places and so on. But in the show notes, we've got some references to all of Lane's touch points, whether it's her LinkedIn personal page, whether it's her LinkedIn Jones Lane page, whether it's her Linktree link, or direct to the onejoneslane.com website. But there's also a link to look at the 2026 Leadership Legacy Experience page that, hey, while I've done a lot of this year's page, make no mistake, it's copy and paste from what Lane did really, really well. So if it looks good, it's because Lane did the framework for it. If it looks like crap, it's because Wes got to messing with the stuff behind the scenes a little bit too much. And he's like, good enough. There's a lot of those different touch points. We would love to have you with us at the Leadership Legacy
Yes.
Experience. But even if you can't come, so don't misunderstand, it's in Harrisonburg, Virginia. But last year we had close to 400 people from more than 125 organizations and 6 different states. This is a mid-Atlantic region at a minimum. I think one of the folks was from Tulsa, Oklahoma. We had companies represented from California. It was pretty wild that we did this in sleepy old Harrisonburg, Virginia, but it's going to be a powerful one, and it'll grow to 1,000 people over the next couple of years.
Yep.
But in the community, in the same community where we're broadcasting the video, you can get access to that Leadership Legacy channel all the time. Now, some of that housekeeping's out of the way. Lane, the last question that I'll ask you formally, and then I'll open it up. You say anything you want to say, because you know I clearly will, even if we're recording. What is a piece? This is something I always like to close when we're doing one of these conversations. What's something that you would recommend to somebody that's young and they want to grow into a leadership role? And I want to differentiate, not a supervisor or manager. Throw that crap away. I'm talking about somebody that wants to lead and make a real impact.
I would say, I know one of the things that's helped me grow into a leader is, okay, there's going to be a couple of things. I think the first thing is don't underestimate yourself. We have enough going on. You've got peers, probably. You've got your supervisor. You've got friends. Sometimes some of us have our families telling us what we can't do. Don't underestimate yourself. Know what you can do and take what you can do and turn that into something and the person you really want to become. Don't let anyone else determine that for you. You have to determine that for yourself. So I would say don't underestimate yourself, and then don't underestimate your value. you're smarter than you think you are, and you're contributing more than you think you are. I would start documenting all the things that you're doing that's adding value in your current role. And then I would look at opportunities within the organization to see where you can add value in one of your strength areas to another department. Remember when I talked about resourcefulness earlier? That is definitely something that as a young person, you have time, you have the wherewithal, and you have access to way more information than I ever had if you're younger in leadership. And so take advantage of that and then use it to your advantage. Now, don't go in saying you know something you don't know. I mean, don't let AI fool you. But I will say, don't underestimate yourself and don't underestimate the value that you are adding and seeing how you can leverage that to get, if you want a promotion or to take on a different role in the company or to, like I said, add value to a different department. Maybe you just want to have more responsibility, because that's the thing about leadership, is being willing to take responsibility and ownership for your role and ownership for the value that you add. Because ultimately, the more value you add, the more you will be called on to be a leader and the more influence you have, just because you're able to create results. So that's what I would recommend.
And powerful. You said it earlier, and that was advice you gave, but you explained how you did it earlier. There was never just one hat. How could I do this? How can I learn this? How can I fill the
Yes.
gap? And it really boils down to, how do I do more than I'm asked before I'm asked, and
Yes.
fill a void?
Yep. And in leadership terms, we call it leading without authority, right? Don't wait for them for someone to give you the authority to do something. You see, it can be done. You're not causing harm to anyone. It's not unethical, or you're not doing damage. Do it. No one's going to stop you from helping the organization. No one's going to stop you from helping a company unless you're told not to. Then, of course, don't do it. But take on the responsibility because you see it needs to be done, and because you really do believe you can add value in that area. Because that's the other thing about learning and growing too. If we only just stuck with what we knew, then none of us would grow. And if you take on something new, then you have to stretch, you have to learn, you have to, and if you want to keep doing the role, you've got to get ahead of it. So that's going to push you to grow more too. So I think you're right. Yes, don't think that wearing one hat is going to get you ahead. No, that's not what a leader does. A leader, John says it this way, John Maxwell says, a leader knows more before anyone else does. And the only way for you to know more before is for you to lean in and find ways to add value to the company even before they ask.
And it never stops. On the 1st of November, Cindy and I didn't have this community in place. We didn't even know this opportunity for community existed, or the app,
Yeah.
or all the different stuff. And at that point in time, we were starting to talk about with you, how do we revamp our Leading at the Next Level program, the course with the
Yep.
close to 200 lessons and so on. And all of those things have come in the last 90 days through
Right.
those conversations.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
And I'll close with that, and then I'll toss it back for you to share anything as we wind it down. In doing that, we used to offer some type of free trial for the Leading at the Next Level program through our podcasts and so on. We've tweaked that up a bit. Lane has helped us revamp, add some different tiers. We've, for 5 or 6 years now, offered continuing education credits for specifically the human resource folks, but a few other organizations as well. If you have a need for those, reach out to us at admin@dove-development.net, and we'll work through the process with you. But we've also made it into a lower tier so we can give access to more people at a lower price that just don't need the continuing ed. But Lane's helped us do so many cool things. There's AI chat agents that will help you find exactly what you're looking for. There's a lot of different stuff in that program that makes it world class. And a lot of the content was there, but we weren't delivering it in a way. And Lane's helped us polish that and make sure it's really hitting the community and the people we serve in a better way. So again, reach out to us wherever you're accessing the app, the community. Those notes, those links will be in the show notes, as well as the contact information. Lane, before we close, what would you like to add?
I'm just going to basically ditto what you just said. I think if you all are watching this and you haven't checked out one of the Leading at the Next Level tiers, take a look at that. I think that's a really cool way for you to, on a subscription basis, get access to the development content that's going to make you the best leader. I mean, obviously, all of you are here because leadership is speaking to you, or you're in a role within a company and you want to do better in your current role. So even if you don't refer to your growth as leadership, there is professional growth and personal growth opportunities and sessions inside of the Leading at the Next Level tiered access program. And so I'm just going to ditto that because I think it's one of the easiest and simplest ways, if nothing else, to get some continuing education or some professional development credits under your belt. But you're going to learn a lot too, because Wes is a phenomenal instructor, and all of those courses that he's created have come from lived work that he's done with clients. And as I mentioned earlier, he and Cindy live out the values that they teach. And so you're going to be in good hands in that community. And I'm expecting Wes for that to grow tremendously once we tell more and more people about it.
Amen to that. It's a pretty well kept secret, and
Yeah.
shame on me for it being a secret, but you're helping us move the needle on that. Lane,
Yeah.
thanks for taking the time to join me for this today. We appreciate every interaction we get to have with you, and we're so excited to build on that values advantage framework, but really to host that values advantage, the leadership legacy experience on June 12th, 2026, to
Yes.
really hone it in. And I never mentioned this. The subtitle of the book is really how it's the foundation for leading with clear purpose. Without those values, you're not going to have a clear purpose. You can't lead with a clear purpose if you don't have values as foundation.
That's right.
Appreciate y'all
Absolutely.
joining us. Make it a great day. We'll see you soon.